Hi everybody. So today's video is going to be on the lesson for Thursday, March 19th. You have a bell ringer today. It is posted on the live agenda, and we are doing slides 51 to 53. It's one writing slide and two picture slides because we're getting closer to the end of the war. Yesterday we talked about VE Day and Franklin Roosevelt dying, and we have a new president. It's Harry Truman. We also talked about Mussolini in Italy and how Mussolini is now is dead, and then Hitler is going to commit suicide. So our leaders of these countries are really, they're dying off. Roosevelt's going to have a stroke. Hitler commits suicide, and Mussolini is murdered. So anyway, we looked at pictures of FDR's grave in Hyde Park yesterday. Today, we're going to talk about VJ Day. So we have Victory in Europe Day, VE Day, and then we have Victory in Japan, VJ Day. So if you will follow along, this is slide 51, VJ Day. There's one vocab word, and it is VJ Day, Victory in Japan. So we have a new president. It is Harry S. Truman. And one of the biggest things that I want you to get from this slide is that we are still fighting very, very, very hard against Japan. They will not surrender. We talked about the honor that it was to be in the Japanese military. So, they're not going to give up. They don't want to give up. And we are fighting and have been fighting them in the Pacific. So we are getting closer and closer to the mainland, which is, Iwo Jima. We got closer, island hopping, and we are constantly bombing Japan. We feel like that will get them closer to surrendering if we continue to bomb them. By the time that Harry Truman becomes, I'm looking at my iPad, sorry. By the time that Harry Truman becomes president, he doesn't know anything about the nuclear bombs. He doesn't know anything about the atomic bombs. He doesn't know about the Manhattan Project, which we talked about in American history last year, was the secret building of and creating of the atomic bomb in New Mexico. And so we actually, hire German citizens, scientists, to end up working for us in our science program after World War II because they are so talented in what they do, and that kind of gets them out of being persecuted for being a Nazi and Nazi sympathizers, but we'll talk about that when we get to the Cold War. So we're bombing Japan. Truman doesn't know anything about the atomic bomb. By the time he's president, he has to decide, and he gathers up a group of people to advise him as to whether or not this is something that we should use, because it's not a game. Like, this is something very serious. The atomic bomb is a massive weapon that we've never used before. Of course, now we know that it is a terrible thing and it destroys everything in sight. But at the time, we knew it would cause damage, but we didn't know how much damage it would cause. And so this is what basically those two bullet points in the slide summarize him getting some advice on whether he should do this or not. In addition, we don't warn Japan that we are going to bomb them with a nuclear weapon. They know that we're bombing them with just like regular bombs, but we don't warn them, and Truman decides not to warn them. What he does do is he says, this is your last chance to surrender. You must surrender. This is your last chance. They don't surrender. And so on August 6, 1945, I'm looking at the slides, an B-29 bomber plane named the Enola Gay, which we'll look at pictures, flew over Hiroshima and dropped an atomic bomb. Hiroshima was the first city to experience this type of weapon before. Nobody knew that we were going to use an atomic bomb except for us. 80,000 people died immediately. Immediately. They are going to turn to dust. Their skin, the people that were far enough away, still are going to experience radiation. Their skin is going to melt off. This entire book is on Hiroshima, and it's a primary source. This was written right after the event. And I have, of course, markings in here of skin just melting off. People's eyes are liquid. They are completely, their faces by the flash, they are burnt skin, because of how bright it is, and the temperature is unbelievably hot. 80,000 people are going to die immediately. 80,000 people. 35,000 are going to be injured, and 90,000 buildings are destroyed. This is August 6, 1945. I have more things, and his skin is slipping off. Oh, there's a story here of a man, and he's, not too badly injured, and he's walking around trying to help the people that he can, not knowing that this whole time he's breathing in radiation and experiencing radiation. He walks up to help this man off of a boat. As soon as he grabs his hand, his skin starts to slip off. I mean, this is it's unbelievable, the devastation. There are stories of people's, outlines of just their ashes being pushed against like buildings and stuff because the explosion like blew their bodies, it disintegrated them, right? And then their outline was on like a wall. I mean, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. It destroys everything in sight. Women who were pregnant are going to have deformities in their children when they're born, and they're going to have health issues for sure because of the radiation. I believe that is it. I have, cancer growths on babies. Babies are born with smaller heads. I mean, the effects of this bomb are tremendous, and we will never, hopefully, will never have to experience something like this again, because we learned how terrible this was. And when we get to the Cold War, it's one thing to say like, I'm gonna bomb you with a nuclear bomb, but like to actually do it takes a certain kind of person. And I'm not saying Truman was right to do this. It's kind of like, well, we didn't know how bad it was going to be, which is true. We genuinely didn't know how terrible this was going to be. But now that we have seen the devastations of this to humanity, this can't happen. This cannot happen ever again. The skin hung from their faces and hands. Others, because of the pain, held their arms up as if carrying something in both hands. Some were vomiting as they walked. Everyone was silent, no expression whatsoever. Because what are you supposed to do? There was, let's see, a few people even spoke, whose faces had been blotted out by the flash and the burns. It's awful. It's awful. 3 days later, after Hiroshima, because Japan has shown no signs of surrender, we're going to have drop another atomic bomb on a city called Nagasaki, where 40,000 people are going to die. So we have half the death toll for Nagasaki than we did in Hiroshima, both equally as bad, both equally as devastating. So that was August 9th. 6 days later, they are going to surrender. The Japanese Empire is going to surrender. And we have VJ Day, which is Victory in Japan. So there are moral crises to this decision. And I don't know. I don't have anything to tell you about whether I think this was the right choice or not, because, we didn't know how bad it was going to be, but I also don't feel like that's an excuse. I feel like we could have maybe spoken about things. I know American lives were at stake, and I know we've been fighting for a very long time, but to use a type of weapon that is so powerful and that you had to develop in secret, I just don't think it was fair. And looking back now in hindsight, it's much easier to judge. But at the time, I wasn't the one making those decisions, and I don't know what else could have been an option. So it was terrible. It was horrific. And you will see in slides 52 and 53, where we're looking at pictures of the effects. You have the Enola Gay airplane. This is what was carrying the atomic bomb for Hiroshima. Devastations, no more buildings. Completely destroyed. We would have nothing if this was, we wouldn't even be here. People who survived, there's nothing left for you. There's nothing left. This is Harry Truman, for those of you that do not know. Harry S. Truman was Roosevelt's VP, took over when he died. And then this is a child in that bottom picture. I believe they're like cutting off pieces of skin that had grown, been burnt off and maybe grown back the wrong way. The child is crying, obviously. More destruction of towns, just completely gone. That's the mushroom cloud. That's what people use. That's what you see when a bomb is dropped, and it's just complete devastation. So for your summaries for slide 51, I want you to explain the significance of dropping this kind of weapon on Japan. I'm not asking you to decide if it was morally right. That might be a bell ringer coming up. But I just want you to think about, like, why was this, why now? It's 1945. Japan is still fighting. We've already conquered Europe and taken that back from the Nazis and conquering Germany, basically. We at the Yalta Conference. So we've already done that. The Allies are trying to fix what was wrong. So yeah, why was this atomic bomb significant to the war? Why was the decision made? And look at the pictures, answer your bell ringer question, and that is it for today. Bye, everybody. Sad topic. Oh, now I'm bummed. Sorry. Bye.